If you are thinking about planting bamboo and you're not sure you need to put a barrier in, this video is for you. So there's a lot of misconceptions about planting bamboo and that it's going to take over everything, it's going to kill the forest, and it's going to spread like crazy. You're not going to be able to maintain it. It's going to take over the world. Well, if bamboo was going to take over the world, it would have done that already because it's been around a lot longer than humans have. So I don't know about you, but when I open my front door, I don't see an endless forest of bamboo. So that whole thought that bamboo is extremely invasive and it's irresponsible to plant it is a bunch of hogwash, if you ask me. Did I just quote a Harry Potter phrase? So if you're thinking about planting bamboo, putting a barrier in may or may not be necessary. In my yard, the real reason why I have a barrier in is not necessarily to contain it, but it's to keep the bamboo growing within the grove. And let me elaborate on that a little bit. So in my yard, I have bamboo grove in the back, and it's surrounded by it's sort of a circle, so it's almost all sides, let's say, surrounded by grass. And I cut my grass. So if the bamboo rhizome was to grow outside of the area that I'm growing it into my grass, I would run it over with a lawnmower, in springtime when they're setting up new shoots, and I would be killing those shoots and eventually killing the rhizome because the rhizome isn't going to have any energy to keep on growing. So, and this is kind of leading into what I'm getting at, but I want that rhizome to hit the bamboo barrier that I have in my grove, and I want it to divert and continue growing within that grove. Because if it grows out in my yard and I run it over with the lawnmower and kill it, that's progress that could have been going into the grove instead. And that's the real reason why I have it, why I put a barrier in for myself. I'm not worried about it growing into my yard because I cut my grass. And that's what I'm saying here is that, for instance, let's say this was your property. I know this is a really bad example, but let's say this is your property, this square, and you decide to plant a bamboo grove, like in the middle here, and this can be to any scale you really want it to be. But if you have grass surrounded by this entire grove that you plant, and you cut your grass, you don't have to worry about it spreading because it only shoots once per year. And in the springtime, there's a small shooting season in the fall, but it's so small and there's so little that actually happens. But most of it happens in the springtime. The rest of the growth actually happens underground during the rest of the year. But in the springtime, you're going to be cutting your grass and you're going to be cutting the new shoots that come up outside of that. And that's going to stop the spread of the rhizome because it's not going to have any energy to collect to continue on further. If this little patch was more towards the edge of your property, that might be a different story. And that's what I'm going to talk about here with this terrible diagram. So let's say this is a fence here for the back of your property, and this is another fence line for your neighbor's property, and your property is right here, and you decide to plant bamboo in this back corner. Well, you are absolutely going to want to put a barrier in along this fence and along this fence for sure, because if you don't, it is most certainly going to grow into your neighbor's yard. Now, bamboo doesn't grow so fast to where you can't really maintain it. It's not like trying to stop grass from growing per se, like, turf grass, even though bamboo is a grass. It doesn't grow so fast where it's unmanageable. Let's put this into perspective. My bamboo grove in my backyard has been growing there for about 5 years since I started it. It has spread maybe 10 feet out from the epicenter. So if you'd have to be pretty lazy to not be able to do something about it to stop it from growing further out. So there's plenty of time to control it. If you see it coming up somewhere you don't want it, it's pretty simple. You stick a shovel in the ground, you sever the rhizome, and you pull it up. It's usually no more than a couple inches down anyways. 12 inches at the most usually. Now, if you let it go for too long, and those, I'm talking about like 7 to 10 years of not doing anything, there's a chance that it's going to be very difficult to manage if you try to go back and try to restrict its growth and downsize the grove. It's going to be a lot more difficult to deal with. So in that case, yeah, it could be pretty hard. But if you keep up with it and you're not lazy at all, and you're outside just a couple times a year even to tend to your landscaping, it's pretty simple to control and maintain. So anyways, getting back to this image here, this terrible image, you'd want to put a barrier along the fence, but because let's say this is a small property, even though you might have grass growing all this around this entire area here, and you cut the grass, those rhizomes are going to follow that barrier, and they will divert and they will move in other directions. So in this case, in a small spot like this, in a small property, you want to put a barrier around the entire thing, not just around the by the fence line. So I want to talk about a few other things here real quick. And there was another video I did a while ago talking about the barrier that I actually use. That video is going to be linked up here. Bamboo is not as invasive as people say it is. And by that, I mean it's not going to destroy all kinds of stuff. Bamboo is very beneficial for a lot of things. In certain areas, like places like I went, like Hawaii, bamboo is growing up in a lot of properties, and it's used for privacy fences. It's a natural privacy screen. It grows nice and dense, and if you're growing it like along the edge of your property, and you put in a barrier so that it's not growing into neighbor's property, and you cut your grass on the other side of it, you're going to maintain it into a small spot or a small width area along the length of your property, and it's going to grow up so dense that you're not going to be able to even see through it. It's a natural privacy screen, and it continues to replenish itself over and over and over again. You don't have to build a wall. It does it for you. Another good thing about bamboo is it could be a windbreak. Maybe you're in a windy area, maybe you have a garden, and you plant it around the edge. It could be a really good windbreak, actually. The other thing about it, one of the good things that it's probably the number one thing, actually. Think about people that deforest areas, especially like in mountains or hills and areas like that. A lot of landslides actually happen because people cut the trees down, and those roots are actually what's holding all that dirt and rock together. And when the trees are cut down and the roots die, the soil and everything loosens up. So that's how you get these massive landslides from deforestation. Well, bamboo is something that grows quickly enough, and it's also very easily replenishable, not like a tree. So if you were to cut bamboo all down, it's going to send up all new shoots. It's going to continue to grow. So in the case where it's kind of hard to get rid of in that sense, it can actually be a good thing. Because if you were living, say, like next to a cliff, for instance, and the cliff was, it's all kind of rocky, but say it's like a straight drop, and you have soil, like you're not living on top of rock, but you have soil on top and you have a cliff, and you plant bamboo along that edge, that the roots and everything, the rhizomes that are all part of this bamboo system form a pretty tight interweaving mesh that hold all that dirt together. It's actually going to prevent further erosion. It's actually probably one of the easiest ways you can prevent erosion from something if you live on a property like that. So it's really, really good for that. So that's about it for this video. I just wanted to make it really quick and talk about a couple things. There's probably more that I could talk about. If you have any questions, leave them in the comments below. I hope it was helpful and maybe alleviate some worries you had about growing bamboo. I do annual updates on my bamboo grove every year. The playlist for that will be right up here. And we'll see you in the next video. Thanks for watching.